Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. A very warm welcome to you to Meet Menaca Talk Show, episode 110 today. We're going to be talking about making education fit for purpose with Mr. Mylvaganam Sooriasegaram, who is an engineer. We will tell a bit more about the speaker in a minute. Before that, let me introduce the talk show. Meet Menaca features experts in their respective fields and real people sharing their real stories to create a positive social change. It's a 90-minute multicultural online talk show to celebrate each and every one of you. Our mission is to touch 1 million lives by inspiring them to be healthy, happy, and hopeful. Why are we talking about making education fit for purpose today? Generally, there are three purposes. Firstly, and I think most of us agree, particularly from the subcontinent, it is to grow our economy. Secondly, to nurture our culture. And thirdly, to enhance life skills to fit for purpose. And I think the third point is where we are going to focus more today, as far as I understand. As we all know, adult life is complicated. However, we do owe it to ourselves and our future generations to acquire the ability and skills to have the sense of purpose to succeed. So let us find out more in today's show how to be part of this mission of making the education fit for purpose. And also you could be part of the exclusive Q&A session with Mr. Mylvaganam. Let us talk about the speaker a bit. You must be wondering, why did we ask him to come to speak about this topic today? He is professionally an engineer who served for 40 years in the UK and 14 years in Sri Lanka, a dual citizen of Sri Lanka and Britain, politically an independent socialist and secularist thinker, believes that human emancipation is only possible through evidence-based and lifelong education. So no wonder he is here today as a speaker to discuss about how to make education fit for purpose. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, which is pretty accurate. And let us kickstart the interview.
Yeah, thank you so much. And the little I know of you and have spoken to you, you are really passionate about making education fit for purpose. So I thought I'll start by asking, what is evidence-based education? And do you think it is a better way to approach education?
Yes, that's a fairly good question, I think. I just want to introduce, say a few words. By the way, greetings to all my friends, brothers and sisters, and comrades, if there are any. And I want to be this to be a very inclusive discussion. Everybody should participate. Now, I am 80 years old. I spent 40 over years in United Kingdom and the other 40 years in Sri Lanka. So I'm very, very familiar with the education system in Sri Lanka because I went through the education system from primary school all the way up to university in Sri Lanka. And then also I've gone through the education system in Britain for higher studies, further studies. So my experience, I'm giving the benefit of my experience, combined experience in the United Kingdom, in the Western world, and also Sri Lanka. Now, evidence-based education, I think, is very important, not only in education, in whatever we do in our life. It is always better to be guided by confirmed facts. That is very important to progress, economic progress, political progress, solving the various conflict that have been inflicting Sri Lanka. So if you go, what is the common basis for discussion? It should be truth. It should be evidence. It should be information, correct information. So if the education is going to be based on evidence-based criteria, then I think many problems in Sri Lanka would be solvable, including the so-called ethnic conflict and the wars and everything. And that is why I prioritize education. That education should be based on evidence-based information.
I think it's not only Sri Lanka. I think throughout the world, I think it'll make a difference.
Yes. I mean, if I could give an example, I mean, in a school, you are teaching evolution, theory of evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution. So, but at the same time, you are also teaching creation theory. So you can see a conflict in the minds of children. Science says something and faith says something very different. So I want to take faith out of education and leave it for people to follow whatever faith they want to believe in. But when it comes to education, it has to be evidence-based. This is my answer to your question.
Thank you so much. On our talk show, many medical professionals come, and medical profession revolves around evidence. When it is evidence-based, of course, we evolve and we change our thinking and beliefs as the evidence comes through. But I also believe that is the right way to do it.
There is one other thing I want to add. Now, I know that education is not only a problem in Sri Lanka, it is a problem in Britain. It's every time, every so often they want to keep on revising the education system. And because there is a fundamental problem here also. Now, that is why, if you remember Tony Blair, when he was Prime Minister, he said, education, 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 right? So he prioritized education, but of course, I am not saying that he did everything right, but on the question of education, the prioritizing education, he was 100% right. Although he was trying to promote faith schools at the same time, which is kind of contradicts our approach to education, which is fact-based, evidence-based.
I think generally, at least on this talk show, I'm very particular that we keep politics and religion out of it. But because I really promote diversity and inclusion, and I think there's definitely a place for it. But I do agree, evidence-based education, not 100%, 200%. I'm in agreement with you, but I think it doesn't affect any singular country or any singular culture. It, across borders, throughout the globe. If we can embrace that way, there will be no conflict of thoughts, exactly how you put it across, because there's only one message to all the students, and I think perhaps that is a way to go forward. I'm no expert in this area, so I'll listen to you. Thank you. The next thing, when we talk about education, is particularly the UK, we have spoken about this many, many times, but it's even more pronounced in some South Asian countries or African countries or any other part of the world. That is the importance of equal opportunity and equal access to education to all children. And I think it is as important to highlight that. So as an expert, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it while I was in Sri Lanka, even during my early years at school and university in Sri Lanka, and later from after the war, I went there and spent 14 years. So it is very clear that in the Sri Lankan education system is a failure in the sense that only a very tiny proportion are benefiting from it. A very tiny percentage of the students only manage to enter university. The vast majority are considered as failures. So if you look at the reasons behind it, I think it is because in spite of all the talk about equality and so on, there isn't equality so far as access to education and also to continue education. Now, majority of the children come from poor families. You know, it is not their fault they are born into a poor family. But the importance of creating a parity before they start year 1 in school is very important. Because what is happening now, if you go to a class in year 1, you will find majority of the children come from very poor backgrounds. And according to research done by Colombo University Medical College professors a few years ago, they are saying 1 million children are going to school without breakfast. So poverty is making education unequal. And poverty, malnutrition, and not being prepared to receive education, you know. That is why later on in our discussion, I want to talk about the importance of pre-education, the preschool education. Preschool education gives the opportunity to remove this disparity. You know, children of rich parents, professionally qualified parents, that is another category. I wish them good luck because they are preparing their children in a much better way to receive education from year 1 and so on. But the majority of the children are not at all prepared. That's why the preschool is very important to equalize, to give a level playing field for all the children. You know, I have been to year 1 children to take some taster classes in Sri Lanka in a few schools. I found this very glaring disparity. Majority of the children their concentration span is so small. You cannot communicate with them. Their reading ability, their listening ability, you know, not of course reading ability, you can forget about it because preschool, but their ability to listen and absorb information is not there. Their concentration span is so small. Even 1 minute they cannot concentrate. So they start disturbing and causing problems in the class. This is what I found. That's why I'm going to concentrate later on in our discussion the importance of preschool.
I totally agree with you in the equal access is so important. Some of us have been very privileged. We had parents who put our education at the forefront. And particularly, as we know, for women, you know, I have spoken about this very openly many times. I'm so grateful for my parents and my grandmother to put my education first. And even to that extent that they even helped me to go abroad to continue my education and become who I am today. But it's not always the case. And it's really commendable, Soori, that you have actually gone back and doing that work to make sure there's equal access to everyone. Because as I say that, you know, some of us have been privileged, and I think to make sure it is also gives an opportunity to people who are not so privileged. So thank you.
Now some of us in Britain got together and formed an organization called Education Foundation for Sri Lanka, but it is based in England. And we have done a lot of things through that. One of the things we did was to train English teachers in Sri Lanka, in the northern province. Only we were concentrating because our resources were limited. So there are nearly 800 teachers, English teachers in the northern province. Out of them, only 50 teachers are qualified to teach English. So the remaining teachers, actually, they can't even speak English. They probably can teach grammar and so on, okay, but when it comes to communicating in English, they cannot communicate. I have met them, I have talked to them. So we decided to train teachers in the northern province using the British Council services. Very expensive, but it's very good. So we trained, to begin with, we trained 20 teachers after doing an online testing and selected 20 teachers. And that cost 2 million rupees for 6 months. And then the second batch also we did. And we found we can't afford to spend 2 million rupees for every 20 teachers. So we decided to change our strategy, and we went for training the trainers. So we selected the best 20 teachers and trained them as trainers through the British Council. So we have now provided to the Northern Province Ministry of Education 20 trainers who can train the remaining 700 odd teachers. This is something we have given forever. We have now started a newspaper, online newspaper called Kalvi Chudar. At the moment, we are only writing articles in this online paper in English and Tamil, but very soon we want to extend it to Sinhala language also, getting people to write in Sinhala. So that is going to be the key means by which we are going to communicate to teachers, parents, and the education authorities our views on education.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm very aware that there are multicultural people on the platform from India, from Africa, from different Caribbean countries, and from Malaysia, from 40 plus countries. People join us, so I'm very, very aware not to restrict the talk just for Sri Lanka. It's very important. Yes, but it is an excellent model to do, even for other people who are thinking of going and doing the similar kind of or same thing back in your own neck of the woods. I think training the trainers is always a great idea, because they say it is best to teach people how to fish rather than giving the fish itself. And I think that is the philosophy behind it, I'm sure. And I know personally, I know a lot of charities, different charities are doing, some charities I'm part of and some charities I'm not, but each one is doing their bit to do certain things. Only one thing with this particular project I can highlight, however, because I am from Sri Lanka and I know we don't get educated in English in Sri Lanka. I think that is the biggest contrast when it's compared to definitely India, because I have spent there 10 years in India. I call it my second home. So I know most of them do get educated in English, but not everyone, even in India. Some parts of India, they don't get educated in English. So it's very important to be inclusive and keep that in mind. This particular talk show, 40 plus countries people come, so we have to kind of be a bit more broader in what we approach.
Yes, I completely agree. Two things you made, very good points. One is sustainable efforts. Training the trainers is a sustainable one. The other one is a one-off type things. It doesn't last. And the second thing I want to say is, whatever I say about Sri Lanka is applicable to all the developing countries, including India, which is fairly developed. It's a fast-growing economy in the world. And so, even though I am talking about Sri Lanka, actually everything is applicable to Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So, and also we can learn a lot what Cuba achieved, one of the poorest countries in the world. What they have achieved in education is really a wonder. After the new government came into power under Castro, and their literacy level was more or less like 10% or less than 10%. Within 1 year, they sent 100,000 teachers throughout the country and removed illiteracy. So that is, in my opinion, as a wonderful thing. So they have laid the foundation for the country.
That is something to be amazed at, for sure. I think these are the things, I think when we talk globally, I think we can also learn so much from each region or each system, how they do it. So thank you so much for highlighting that. I didn't know it at all. So it's something for me to go and do some homework later on. Thank you. Next one is important, is particularly in the UK, we are all talking about the budget and the fund allocation. It is a big piece because, as individuals, at charities, at non-profit organizations, we are all doing our own bit. However, in the big scheme of scale, we do need that support. So as an expert, what is the highest fund allocation to education? And of course, with healthcare as well, because if you are talking about equal access, healthcare is as important as education, because if you don't have a healthy body and healthy mind, it's very hard to then focus on education.
So in Sri Lanka, the allocation in the budget for education is 4% and lower than the defense budget. And similarly for healthcare in Sri Lanka. So healthcare and education are not the top priorities in Sri Lanka. So the FUTA, the University Teachers Union, they went on strike for a long time, asking for 6%, which has not been awarded yet. And I don't think under the present economic crisis, anything like that is possible. So we are in a limbo in terms of allocation of funds for education. Now, having said this, I have to also mention that Sri Lanka was ahead of many, many other countries in providing free education from kindergarten all the way up to university. I don't think you can think of any other country in the world apart from Cuba. As far as I know, free education is provided by the state for all children, all the way up to university. Secondly, I also don't know any other country which provides free health service by the state. And it is a fairly good healthcare system, NHS, in Sri Lanka. So these have to be put on record. I don't know whether you remember, Sri Lanka was an envy of the world in the 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s and 60s. And India was behind us. We were ahead of on many things. I don't know whether you remember, Lee Kuan Yew said that his ambition was to make Singapore a Sri Lanka. So we could do it. We could have done it. But unfortunately, particularly from 1977 onwards, Jayarjavardhana went in the wrong direction. And from that time onwards, we were going down the hill. And that is what led to the present economic chaos.
Thank you so much. So I think it's not only in Sri Lanka, as I said, but even in the UK, even with the new budget, I think NHS staff, a lot of NHS staff come to our show. I know that for a fact. And, and education, there are huge cuts for that. But I totally agree with you. Sri Lanka has a very unique problem with the ethnic conflict.
And you're right. For the first time in the history of Britain, Royal College of Nurses are going to go on strike. Their policy was no strike in the healthcare, NHS. But they have enough is enough, they said, and they are now going on strike. That is an indication of the crisis in Britain.
So what I'm trying to say is it is a universal problem. So it is, but I think it is time everyone to focus and look at where they allocate the funds. Perhaps in a bigger picture, which are the important sectors, and there's only so much money, whether we like it or not, that's a fact. And where they should allocate perhaps is an important question to ask. I think for me personally, what I'm going to ask you to discuss next is the most important bit of this talk. Because I don't believe in spending too much time and energy in what happened. Of course, it's good for reflection, it's good to learn. But I always say that's the reason when you drive, your front windscreen is so much bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason, because you have to focus and put more energy and time into that. So in that context, how can we make education fit for the 21st century and beyond universally? It's not only for Sri Lanka, for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it is important to recognize the fact that our education system was inherited from Britain. It is a copycat of British education system, and which was designed to serve the interests of British Empire. The same thing in all the countries. If you go to South Africa, it's the same. You know, they have the best universities, but also majority of them have nothing. In Sri Lanka also, we had Peradeniya University, Columbia University, and so on, which was very high standard. But they are designed to serve the interest of British rule in Sri Lanka. So we are really copycats. Everything we do in Sri Lanka is so we didn't start thinking from fundamentals. We didn't start thinking of what are the needs of our people. So that is the inherited crisis. So if you look at the education system, it is people who qualify from Sri Lankan universities are employable in the West, but they are not employable in Sri Lanka. Their qualifications are not fit for purpose for Sri Lanka. So that is why I think it requires a lot of changes. The education system requires a lot of changes in Sri Lanka. Now, at the moment, if you look at it, the education system in Sri Lanka is geared only to pass examinations. A stars and degrees seems to be the end result. But at the end of it, we find it is useful. I can tell you that I was working in a construction company, one of the largest, not one of the largest construction company in the north and east. When I interviewed, I had the opportunity to interview engineers, quantity surveyors, technical officers, accountants, human resource people, and so on. You know, if you look at their CV, they look so beautiful, you know, and you think, oh my God, this person has got so many qualifications. But when you start interviewing them, you find it's a waste of space, their qualifications. They cannot, their problem-solving skills are virtually nil. That's a problem with the education system, because they are only geared to pass examinations. And schools are not the places anymore for education. Most of it happens outside school in tuition centers. So they just prepare them, cram them, prepare them to pass the A-level so that they can go to university. But that is not fit for purpose, in my opinion. I have personally experienced when I interviewed people. You know, after interview 100 people, you select 3 people, and then you give them the job, and they are in their desks. And every problem that is given to them, they will say, sir, I don't know how, I have never done this. I don't know what to do this. So we have to sit and explain to them from A to Z. So that is a problem. I will give you one very good example. My boss, I was the general manager of the company, but the managing director was Mr. Ramadas, and I don't mind telling the name. The company's name is Euroville. He was also in the board of, in the council, university council. And when he was interviewing a young girl who graduated with a first class in chemistry. So his question to her at the interview was, why do you put chlorine in water? What is the purpose of adding chlorine in water? And she couldn't get the right answer. After doing a degree, special degree, 4 years special degree in chemistry, she said it is used for cleaning the water. You can clean a room, clean the kitchen, but you don't clean the water. She missed one important word. She didn't know that it was actually a disinfectant, killing the bacteria. So, first class. And that also chemistry. Can you believe chemistry? She should know what chlorine is used for. So this is what I'm saying, the defect. I can give many, many examples. If you go to the agriculture faculty in Sri Lanka, it is absolutely astonishing how removed they are from reality.
I agree in a way, yes, because I think education doesn't always prepare you for many skills. I think perhaps you're right in saying that universities and schools have to prepare them for much beyond just passing exams. And because I have my own dental practice and I've been a dentist for, shows my age, 30 years now. And so yes, we can see when people come in and they have, it's like, at least in healthcare, I'm sure that there are a lot of doctors who have so much more experience than me. Yes, we do learn the technical skills. However, the softer skills like communication or even leadership skills or business skills, if you're going to have your own practice, are hardly taught. So I think, yes, even mental well-being or resilience or anything else. So I think
yes, what is actually missing, Menaca, if you don't mind me interrupting, what is missing in our education system is critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And as you said quite rightly, communication skills. Creativity is not there. And as you said quite rightly, soft skills like public relations.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, team working, right? Team working. Many people in Sri Lanka are very poor in team working. So these are essential part of education, which to make it fit for purpose.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I think they say teamwork makes it dream work. So I think for any project to be open, I think there's no hierarchy, and I really, really believe in the servant leadership model, because I think as a leader, you are there to serve other people and to bring other people out. And I think if everyone, from politics to education to employment, if everybody follows that, I don't think we will have the roadblocks what we are having right now. So thank you so much.
There's a lot in team working, it's collaboration and understanding each other and being inclusive, respecting one another's views and coming to the right conclusions. These are essential part of teamwork. The cooperative aspect is very important, cooperative aspect. And yes, another aspect I missed is what is the purpose of all our education? It is only to serve the people. Service is the end result of education must be able to serve the people in a better way.
In the best way possible.
Missing in Sri Lanka. You can see all the people end up in government service with degrees, masters and SLAs, all kinds of qualifications. But actually the service to the people from these institutions are really dismal. There are very good people also inside, but they are a minority. Majority of them are just there marking time and not actually listening to the needs of the people and serving them. I can give you hundreds of examples, but I think everybody knows that.
Thank you so much. So let's go to another topic you are passionate about. Why do we need to prioritize preschool education? I know you're very, very passionate about this particular topic, so I just thought I'll ask you.
The main reason, the scientific reason for prioritizing preschool education is this. When a child is born, the child is equipped with a very high percentage of brain. 10 billion brain cells are there when the child is born. Now, Then what happens is they are called neurons. Those neurons are disconnected. They are standalone neurons. Until such time those neurons connect to each other, the brain doesn't start functioning. So what makes the connections is what you do with the children. Depends on what you do with the children. If you expose the children to an environment for learning, a very congenial environment for learning, those cells join up. Once the cells join up into groups, then brain starts working. It will pick up so many things around the child. I mean, I don't know whether when you hold a 1-year-old baby in your chest, most people hold the children hugging them. The child's face is facing your chest. But I do the opposite. I tried with my grandson. I do the opposite. I turn him around and he looks the world away from me. But I hold him, of course, very, very securely. And you watch them. If you watch them, you will be amazed. You know, they look at the birds flying, the fluttering. They look at the moon in the night. They look at the buses going by. Everything it gets registered. Now, this kind of attention to young babies makes these neurons connect up. The more exposure you give it to the children, the more joining up of these cells, and therefore the better the brain starts working. 40% of the cells 40% of the brain is already formed when the child is born. Then it increases to 60% when it's 3. Then it increases to 90% when the child is 5. So you can see most of the development of the brain takes place before 5. Only 10% is left for the rest of the life. Our education system is concentrating only on the 10%, leaving out the 90%. So this is the key scientific reason, in my opinion, for concentrating and for prioritizing preschool education. The second most important reason, as I've already mentioned, is to equalize the difference, the big disparity between poor children and children coming from affordable families. So if you prepare them, so providing preschool education, at the moment in Sri Lanka, preschool education is not part of the free education system. It's very important to know. It is my aim, it is our aim of the Sri Lanka Foundation for Education to incorporate the preschool also into the state free education system. At the moment, it's all done in bits and pieces by various people. And the teachers are paid 6,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees only. How can a teacher live on 10,000 rupees? You need at least 30,000 rupees.
It's not the only problem in Sri Lanka. It is a universal problem. As I said, even here teachers are struggling. You know?
Yeah. I can understand. It's the same problem in all the countries in Africa and so on. So, but still, having said all this, still the literacy level in Sri Lanka is still very, very high, 95%. So, but preschool education is the only way to ensure equality, equal opportunities, and equal access to education for all the children. Otherwise, you will find the same situation continuing. That is, 90% of the children are failing. The education system is failing them.
I think you made an excellent point when the children are young to put their senses into work, isn't it? Like when you are turning them around, and basically what they're doing is they're using all their senses to be receptive and to learn new things. And because even there is research to be told, their creativity is hugely declining as they grow older. And they say, is education part of it to kill the creativity? So I think you raise a very important point.
You know, Menaca, another thing, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. Now, there are a lot of very good examples set up in certain countries like Finland, for example, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and so on. Their education system is far, far superior to Britain or France or Germany or so and so on. So their preschool one is amazing. You know, in Finland, it is very, very interesting. In Sri Lanka, you find people going after degree going into teaching. They are usually not first class or upper second or not even lower second. Most of them have a third class degree. So they are the people who end up as teachers. Whereas in Finland, the top 10% of the graduates from universities, they are the ones who are selected for teaching. See how they are prioritizing education by providing the best caliber of teachers, whereas in Sri Lanka, it's not like that. As I told you earlier, out of 800 English teachers, only 50 are qualified to teach English. So it's a very sad state of affairs. Not only in English, a lot of children are also failing to have communication skills in their mother tongue, both Tamils and Sinhalese. So without good communication skills, good proficiency in the language, you cannot receive education.
Thank you so much. Can I ask, what is balanced education, just for the benefit of everyone? If you can keep it brief, then we can perhaps...
Now, yeah, I will be brief. If you take a school, typical school in Sri Lanka, in the northern province, that's where I did all the study, you will find most of the children are geared only to pass examinations and go to university. And that is after 12 years of schooling in school, I mean, the government has set up, you know, irrespective of how much I detest the current government, Sri Lanka historically has set up a fantastic system of schools. You know, in northern province alone, they have about 1,000 schools. Throughout the country, they have more than 10,000 schools. You know, that means land, buildings, teachers, principals, laboratories, computers, everything is provided. But still, you know, they have playgrounds. You know, in the school I went to, Menaca College, they have facilities are tremendous compared to what we had in the 60s, 50s and 60s. What they have now is 10 times better. So in spite of that, you don't get the total education. Only in a school which has 2,200 children, only 100 children or 150 children actually play games, sport. So when they come out after 12 years, most of the children they don't have much sporting skills. When they go to university also, they cannot take part in sporting activities. So that's what I am saying, balanced education. Then also in arts, you know, I feel very sad that I cannot play any instrument. You know, music, dance, drama, cooking, you know, everything has to be introduced to children before they leave school at the age of 18 or 19. So this is not absent. Balanced education also, you know, there should be, you know, I don't want to talk about faith and so on, but balanced education also means in every subject, you know, you give a balanced view of what you are teaching. You know, I can give you a lot of examples in mathematics. For example, if you are teaching Fibonacci series, you know, we don't teach them what is Fibonacci, why is it, what is so important. This is amazing concept in Fibonacci series. But we were not taught, we were only told how to solve a problem. We were not told what is the significance of that theory, whether it is in physics or maths or chemistry. That is a real problem. That is why the first class honors chemistry teacher said chlorine is used for cleaning.
Thank you so much. I know it is so important to know these things. And I could agree with you more, because balanced education is so important. And life skills, what we are telling is, it's not just the theoretical, it's application and life skills with it, right? When you said
in that also, inclusive education is very important. You know, gender equality, for example, is very, very important. Sri Lanka is not bad compared to many other countries in gender equality in education, but still we have a long way. There is still biases, there's still discrimination.
So if you have to tell it in one line, how can you implement and promote inclusive education? As you have mentioning gender equality in particular, what can you do?
Well, as you know, the society is very divided. It is divided according to caste, according to gender, according to religion, and so on. I mean, the unfortunate thing is, people are compartmentalized. They live in silos. I can give you one example. My daughter went to a school in Britain. It's a very good comprehensive school. And they taught a subject called religious education. And she told me she has learned in that religious education, she has learned about Christianity, about Hinduism, about Buddhism, about Judaism, everything. So when you do such a thing, it makes you inclusive. You are not, you don't look at another ethnic group or another religious group as something
not aliens.
Alien. So she can understand Islam, she can understand Christianity, she can understand Judaism, she can understand Hinduism. So it's a very powerful way of uniting. You can't unite a country if you compartmentalize the population. So you have to have an open society. This is what I mean.
Sure. Thank you so much, because it's so important. And everyone who regularly comes to this talk show, they know this is the reason we do it in English. And it is all about diversity and inclusion. And everyone should have a voice to voice out whatever their opinions are. We may agree, we sometimes may not agree, but I think we have to learn to listen to others' perspectives and others' viewpoints. It's so important. Thank you so much. How can we have a child-centered education systems? Because I'm sure you come from the same part of the world like we do. It's hardly a child-centered education system. I'm sure you will have something strong to talk about. So can you please keep it brief so that we can cover a bit more?
This is a very serious problem in Sri Lanka. It's not so much in the West, but in Sri Lanka, it is a serious problem. In Asia, Africa, and Latin America, this is a serious problem because we are continuing with the teacher-centered education.
Or adult-centered education.
Adult-centered education. So children have no voice in deciding anything. That is a big problem. Teachers, it's like, I learned a lot from Noam Chomsky. He is the linguist, he's the father of linguistic theories. And he says teachers or university lecturers and so on, he says they should hold a string, a long rope, and allow the students to only just follow and invent. They invent and they study on their own, more or less. Teachers should be there to guide them. Now it is not like that. Now in Sri Lanka, what they think is they consider students as empty vessels. And their teachers feel their duty is fill that vessel with knowledge so that they can pass examinations. So there is no participation. There's no active participation by the children in the learning process. Most teachers don't encourage children asking questions. And when you tell the children you can ask, I have been to taster classes in several schools in the north, and I tell them when I go into the class, you can ask questions anytime. And you can see the enthusiasm. They love asking questions. Actually, small children, even 1 year or 2 year old, they keep on asking questions. and parents don't spend time to explaining them. Many parents, I mean, in Sri Lanka, but in Britain, I think, in European countries, parentage is very good. They look after their children. They always spend time with them and explain, answer their questions and so on. So this is why child-centered education is important, because after all, they are the people who are receiving education. Their participation is very important. Now today, you see, look at today, all the people participating, all the people talking are more or less senior citizens and middle-aged people. There is no presence today to hear the views of students. But education is actually for them. So that I think we should try and rectify. That's why inclusiveness is very important. Decision-making cannot be done from the top. Decision-making must involve all the people associated with that problem.
I think that is something we could perhaps learn from the UK NHS system, because I think more and more it is going towards the patient-centered healthcare. And I think it's rightly so, because I think each person whichever service it is, education, health, whichever the service receiver, the person who gets a service user rather, should be able to have a say at it. And thank you so much. And
the children in many schools, I notice children come and tell me they are not allowed to question, they are not allowed to have any criticism of the education system. If you make any criticism about something wrong or favoritism or whatever it is, and they are penalized. So they are afraid. Whatever teacher says, they have to say yes, 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 and become so obedient. And your personality is not allowed to develop and flourish.
I don't disagree with that at all, because like you, I did my schooling in Sri Lanka, and then I did my higher studies in India, Sri Lanka, and the UK. So I've seen the 3 different places as well. And it's a huge difference. And even like in parenting, there's a big difference as well, because we, in certain part of the globe, particularly Western countries, we listen to the children much more than, and sometimes you learn so much from the children as well. So like you said, child-centered education will be really beneficial.
I want to add a very important, innovative idea that was practiced in one school in Britain. It is in Camden. Camden, as you know, is quite, they provide leadership to the whole country in many, many areas. And this particular school, Acklenburley, they, like all other schools, they have problems of bullying and inflicting pain on the weaker students by the physically strong students. So it introduces a lot of problem in that. So this usually such problems are dealt with by teachers only. They punish them. Punishing them doesn't do any good. Punishing them, they will get the punishment and they will do the same thing again. Now, this is very, very common in Sri Lanka now, especially now. Bullying and fighting and gang forming and so on. Now, in Acklenburley School, what they did was they selected the most capable students in public relations and dealing with people in the school, usually A-level students or more than O-level. And they train them as counselors. And then what happens is, if any bullying takes place, the bullier and the person bullied are brought to this conference. So the people who judge and solve the problems are also children. And they said it was a huge success in Acklenburley School. And soon afterwards, BBC took a program of the school and highlighted this new innovative idea of children solving their own problems. Senior children, older children, solving and creating a precedence. And it gives them, the school has given them the responsibility to solve their own problems. So this is a very, very good example.
A perfect example, really. It is, it's more and more. We do have, particularly in Sri Lanka and India, we do have the prefix, and but it was never used for that purpose, for the right purpose. I think then, instead of, I have to say something about the inclusiveness you spoke about as well. It's really important because I met one of my primary school friends, a high school friend, after many, many years, after decades, out of the blue, she reached out when she came to the UK. She's living in a Western country, reached out, and I went to see her with my husband, and we were just conversing, and she told him, she used to be taking part in this, she used to be taking part in that, and, she used to be the head prefect, whatever. So my husband turned around and said, so what do you used to do? I'm sure you, what are you good at? And she said, only if these people allow us a space, then we could have done something. And that day, honestly, I was shameful, and it brought to space. It is so true. In certain education system, you promote the same people in everything. And we are not the best in everything. But for whatever reason, the system is such that same people get promoted to everything. Because once you are academically good, perhaps, or you are a good leader, then you get pushed into everything to do. So I'm so happy you are bringing such an important aspect to education today. Thank you so much. Examination is something I think we have to leave for time being. And you have spoken so much about education, and I know I can see how passionate you are about the education system. If you are going to tell people 5 things, what they must remember and what they have to share with the family and friends, what would they be? Not only for Sri Lanka, as they said, for the whole globe, because we have guests here from 40 plus countries. What can they take home and say today? We listened to this speaker about education. He's so passionate about it. And I think we should really take these things into consideration.
In education, I can see 3 important participants. The most important one, in my opinion, is students. Secondly, the teachers. Thirdly, the parents. All of them are caught up in a situation. They are not able to get out of that. Parents are caught up in this situation because they have to somehow they want to get their children, get through O-level, get through A-level, go to university. So the society is expecting that. So they are, your own children, it's your own creation. So you have to do the best for them. So what do? They start competitive learning. They start from even preschool. Even preschool children nowadays are going to tuition. Can you believe that? A child cannot enjoy childhood. I'll give you one very good example. This is very particular to Northern Province. It's very particular. There is a famous temple in Jaffna. It is called Nallur Kandasamy Kovil. Yeah, you believe this is very important. Now, a lot of people go to Nallur Kandasamy Kovil, not only Tamils, not only Hindus, but even Buddhists from the south go there. And when they go, they pray, they do everything. It's it's like a festival. It's a joy to go there and see how people are all gathering to pray and worship. But at the same time, there is another thing I noticed a few years ago. There's a theater called Active Creative Theater Group, which is just around the corner from the temple. And they stage 20 dramas during this period of festival. I watched all the 20 plays. One of the plays is about children. Children are getting together, small little children getting together, and they are discussing, why are we living a miserable life? We don't seem to have time to laugh. We don't seem to have time to enjoy. We are tortured. Education is torturing us. So they are saying, they've heard from another country, the neighboring country, India, the children are always laughing, always smiling, always happy. So they have decided to go to India to see how the children are, why they are smiling and we are not able to smile. And then, it's a children's play. So what they are doing, they're carrying a sack. Each one is carrying a sack, going to India. And they want to fill the sack with laughter and bring back to Sri Lanka so that we can be happy. So this is a children's story, but beautifully performed. So this is also happening side by side. So I think children, if you look at children, they get up at 5 o'clock, they go for tuition before going to school, and then they go to school and then come back home and again go to tuition. They are working 16 hours. Adults only work for 8 hours. Children are highly stressed, very highly stressed. They are not enjoying childhood.
Thank you so much. 100%. Thank you so much. You couldn't have said it any more beautifully. It literally brought tears into my eyes because, we don't understand, I guess, as adults. We think we are doing it for their good or their interest, but we are not. And I think you really, really made an excellent point, how important it is to listen to them and to put their well-being first before education. As I first earlier on mentioned on this talk show, because physical well-being, mental well-being, if it's not there, or emotional well-being, then the education system is not going to be able to sustain.
I want to add one important thing, if I may not get another chance. So I'll just say, there is one thing about older people, not only teachers, but older people in society, including myself. We suffer from what I call age arrogance. We think we know everything. We think we don't have anything to learn from children. There's something a few years, 5 years ago, I realized this important thing, and I was communicating more and more and more with young people and children. And there is a new world there, waiting to be exploited. So the older people think in the old ways. They always glorify their old days.
In my day.
Yeah, in my day. The world has moved on. Children has become more brainy. Their brain power is much better than ours. And if you can channel them in the right direction, we can bring about a lot of changes. I think communication between the old and the young is very, very important. In my Facebook, it is very, very sad. In my Facebook, I one day looked about 3-4 years ago, all my Facebook friends are older people. And then I consciously, and also most of them are Tamils. So I consciously made an effort to make more friends among Sinhalese and more friends from the youth. Now in my Facebook, it is very balanced. So I am all the time learning from the young people and their grievances and their concerns and their fears.
Thank you so much. I can see your passion come through. So we will have the exclusive interview afterward on the Zoom. One last question before we wrap up. What has been your experience of the talk show, and what are your views about it?
Yeah, my first point I want to make, this approach is a good one. Instead of making, say, for example, you could have made me speak for half an hour. And then, now that kind of thing is not very effective. That's what people do in Sri Lanka. They always speak on the stage, they speak. If you go to school assemblies, all these big people come and talk. There's no real communication between the audience and between the students and the people on the stage. So they don't care about the students. In my school, for Founders Day and prize giving days and so on, I go there. They always ask me to come and sit in the stage because I'm an old student and senior student and so on. So I always say, no, thank you very much. I will go and sit with the students. So when you sit with the students and listen to the speeches, you can see it is not reaching them. All the people come and make speeches, glorifying, very artificial speeches. They don't address the concerns of the children. If you stand among the children, you will see their face. It's not, there's the wavelength, wrong wavelength. So this pattern that you have adopted is, you are asking questions so people can engage more, and then there's a discussion or question afterwards.
Yes.
This is a very, very good pattern, I think. Interview form is always better, more interesting.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So following tradition, before I wrap it up, let me introduce what's going to happen for the next week. We are going to be having our in-person event on the 3rd of December. Please do come and support us. Really looking forward to meeting some of you for the first time. Empowering with parental leave. I'm sure you will enjoy it if you come, because it's a different way of thinking. I think that's the most important thing, really. Let me introduce to the next program on our hours. We are going to be talking about empowerment and parental leave with Nikki Chandarana, who has been a speaker here, spoke about fraud prevention, which is another important topic. He spoke, I think, earlier in the year, and he's closing the talk show for this year. He has a background as a qualified accountant. Nikki is today a program manager at NatWest, helping the bank prevent fraud, and seems leading a large transformation team comprising a project, data, and technological leads. This year, Nikki graduated with an executive MBA via Quantic Business School and Technology, a university based in Washington, D.C. Their aim is to disrupt the market, providing education via an app and online over Zoom. Furthermore, Nikki has recently traveled to Copenhagen, Dubai, and more recently Berlin, attending in-person conferences and alumni for all over the world, which is the experiences he can draw from. Outside of work, Nikki is a husband and father with a family soon to be extended by one with a second baby expected to the new year. In his spare time, Nikki enjoys networking and bringing like-minded people together in a school setting, and more recently has partnered with a CFO practice called Thrive Growth to provide financial modeling and consulting advice to startups and SMEs. I do know Nikki personally, so I know it is going to be a great talk, and he is as passionate about empowering women. I have identified it myself personally. He always puts forward all the women to take up different roles and do different things. So I can't wait to have Nikki come and speak about it.
That's a very interesting topic, actually. It's my passion also. And one other thing I want to add about your program, the international dimension of your program is I welcome that very much. Rather than doing only one country, it is connected up with the world, and then which is very, very, very good, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now over to Kirbai Kahoot to give the vote of thanks.
On behalf of Meet Menaca celebrating you, I'd like to thank the participants on the Facebook who have come and graced the occasion today, a very important and thought-provoking topic. And for those who regularly come on Zoom and supporting Meet Menaca, we like to personally thank you. Last and not least, there are two educations one should teach us: how to make a living, and the other, how to live. How to live is a lifelong learning, which is applicable every day. And as a speaker, Mr. Sooriasegaram has explained very effectively at the young age of 80 years old. Amazing. We at Meet Menaca celebrate you, sir, for your drive, the zeal for life, the readiness to continue adding value to education in different dimensions. We'd like to thank you and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirbai. And thank you. So really, it was an amazing session. The main thing for me, what stood out is how passionate you are about the topic. And I think that's what is the most important thing. Thank you so much. For people who are on the Facebook listening to us, a huge thank you for supporting us time and time again. Today's show is the 110th show. It couldn't have been possible with everyone who today is attending on the Zoom and people who are listening to us on Facebook. It's as important. And for each and everyone who supports us on the call, outside the call, getting the speakers, and the amazing team who is working tirelessly behind to make this happen. And particularly in a couple of weeks, we are going to have the first in-person event on the 3rd of December. I'm hoping to see many of you and some of you for the first time, even though I have been speaking to you for, this is the 3rd year of the show. I got to know you quite well, but we don't meet in person. So hopefully that barrier will be broken and I'll get to know many of you in person much better. So thank you so much for everyone for all the support you provide to us. Really grateful, immense gratitude, and hoping to see you on the 3rd of December. And for people who are on Facebook, until we see you next week, same time, same place again, to discuss about empowerment and parental leave with Nikki Chandarana. Stay safe, be happy, and keep smiling.